Hi everyone, thank you for clicking on my video. Today I'm going to talk about what materials I use to learn Korean. So here's some background on my Korean learning journey. I started to learn Korean in 2018, but it wasn't very serious and I wasn't disciplined. So I didn't even learn the Korean alphabet at that point. And it wasn't until about 8 months ago that I started seriously learning Korean. I'm going to tell you guys the materials that I have been using. So starting from the very beginning, how did I learn the Korean alphabet, or Hangeul? I used this book, Hangeul Master by Talk to Me in Korean. This book was very helpful since it breaks down the consonant and vowels into different sections and gives you tips on how to memorize the letters and their sounds. There's also directions for how to form the characters so you could nail pronunciation, writing, and memorize the alphabet. I 100% recommend this book for a beginner, since I had tried to learn Hangeul for a long time and just couldn't memorize it for whatever reason. But using this book and flashcards that I made, I was able to learn the alphabet quickly and actually memorize it. So even if I didn't look at Korean for a couple weeks, I still remember the alphabet. Okay, so after I finished that book, I started on the level 1 Talk to Me in Korean book. Talk to Me in Korean level 1. So I was self-studying and this book was very helpful for me. There's 25 lessons in it and each lesson covers a concept or grammar exercise. And the explanations are very thorough and detailed. The explanations are all in English, and for one lesson there might be like 5 pages of explanation and examples, a dialogue, short dialogue, and then an activity or exercise at the end. So this was very helpful to me because it really broke down every concept and thoroughly explained it. So I was able to learn everything in the book easily, I would say, and it's not like parts of the book I don't explain. I fully understand this entire book. So I thought that was very good and made me feel like I was getting a grasp on Korean when I was first starting. One thing I would say is, since there's lots of explanation in English, there really isn't much time for lots of vocabulary words to be introduced, and the book does keep using some of the same vocabulary words, but I think that's okay for the introductory book, since it's kind of overwhelming if there's lots of new words, since you don't know what's a verb, you don't know what is an adjective, you don't know what you don't know what's a noun. Like, if you're just very confused, if they limit the number of variables, which could be new words or concepts, then it makes it simpler for you to understand and build a good foundation. So this is the textbook, and then there's also the workbook that corresponds with this level. So a pro tip I have that I got off of an Amazon review is that all of the textbook information is for free on the Talk to Me in Korean website. However, the workbook is not on the website for free. So if you want to save money, you could just learn the textbook information online for free and then buy the workbook to practice and reinforce what you learned online. So I tried that approach for level 3, which is the level I'm at now, but I had a very difficult time learning off the Talk to Me in Korean website, so just reading off a site. I prefer writing in a book, so I'm okay with buying both book and workbook. But if you want to save money and you're okay with just learning online, I definitely recommend that. If you want to find out your level, you could just go to Talk to Me in Korean website and take their level test. It's free and quick and easy to do. Okay, so everything I talked about before was from Talk to Me in Korean, but I've also used another company. So I also have used the Sejong Institute books. So this one is Sejong Korean 1, and I'm currently on Sejong Korean 2. So these books have a slightly different format than Talk to Me in Korean, since there are, let's just take this book, for example, the level 2. There are 14 chapters. Each chapter has 2 sections. Each section has maybe 7 to 14 new vocabulary words, a grammar point, an exercise, and then an activity you do with a conversation activity you would do with a partner. So this book has lots and lots of vocabulary, and lots of grammar. However, one big difference between this book and the Talk to Me in Korean books is the length of the explanation of the grammar. So in the Talk to Me in Korean, like I said, there will be pages and pages of English explanation, explaining a concept, explaining the cultural and social norms of how you would say this in conversation, things like that. Whereas this book, the grammar is explained in one sentence or two sentences. So there's a really extreme brevity in the explanation for the grammar. But I think that's because these books were designed for you to be in a course. So you have a professor teaching you this, and this is just a textbook you use for reference. So for self-study, I do not recommend these books at all. But if you, like me, are in a course, then they are helpful because your professor is teaching you or giving you the long explanation about the grammar, or you could ask any questions for them. Whereas if I was just studying this book, I would be very confused. And then finally, the last tool that I have been using is this book, again by Talk to Me in Korean, called My First 500 Korean Words. So this book, the format is, there are 52 days, and each day has a set of vocabulary, so maybe 8 words. There's an essay that uses that vocabulary in it, and then there's an explanation of the new vocabulary in that section, as well as related words to the vocabulary that was introduced. So let me give an example. Okay. So on this day, they taught the word glove, but the related words they gave were fur gloves, rubber gloves, and leather gloves. So not only do you learn glove, but like derivatives of not derivatives, but related words to it. So this is a helpful book if you already know like honorifics, grammar, verb conjugation, etc. I would not recommend getting this book before you've done a level 1 or level 2 book from either of these. Because when I bought this book, I actually bought it before, at the same time I bought Hangeul Master, and I think this was because I was very eager as well as confused as to how fast I was going to learn Korean, since after learning the alphabet, I figured I would be able to fly through this book, but obviously not. So even though this is my first 500 Korean words, it's really just teaching you words. It's not teaching you grammar or verb conjugation, etc. There's kind of a crash course in the beginning of like 5 pages, but that's not a thorough explanation at all. So make sure you're just using this kind of as supplementary, or if you already know Korean, not as I just learned the alphabet, let me use this book instead of other books. Okay, so in conclusion, I think Talk to Me in Korean books are great for self-study, and the Sejong Institute books are great for if you're in a course. So thank you for watching my video. Bye!